living with a mental illness it's like a chain around your neck. You like, especially under the ITO, I can't go anywhere, and I can't, like, it doesn't really completely limit your mobility issues and what you can do with your life, but it does debilitate you a little bit. Like with the mental illness, you seem to always be in this zone where you're in a different dimension and you're in a different plane, and your existence is not usually in the physical plane alone, it's also in a spiritual dimension. Because you hear voices and you feel things, you see things, you sense things that are not there, because I have schizophrenia. So they're not there, but you feel as if they're real. You feel as if they're part of your life, and you feel as if they belong in your life. But if you explain it to another person, they can't understand it because they don't hear the voices, they don't see things, they don't feel things. So it's a very difficult life to live. You get treated differently. You sort of feel like you're lesser of a human being because of a mental illness, because of the stigma attached to it, and people make jokes about being loony, or you're from the loony bin, or from you're a nutcase or a nutter. Like, some friends say that all the time when I'm around. So you do get treated differently. The judicial jargon that lawyers usually use, some of the it's not just mentally ill people, but the public in general, we don't normally have definitions, or we don't know the meanings attached to the judicial jargon and the legal terminology. So maybe define these things so that it's more we can comprehend it better and we can understand the jargon better. And also just the legal process. Normally we don't know what's happening in the legal system. It's very confusing and it's very much a scary process. And having a lawyer there, they're sort of like your advocate, they're your representative, your legal representative. So it's sort of like having someone holding your hand while you're going through the judicial system. So just being mindful of having a caring attitude and having a loving attitude towards your client. It would be beneficial for my lawyer and my case manager to work together, to maybe have an appointment together, to sit down and talk about my needs and where I'm at and where I'm meant to be going with the ITO. So that they're working together for my behalf and they're both representing me, because they do represent me at the ITO together, but at the moment I'm working separately and independently of each other. So it's better for them to come together and work things out. So maybe I'm going to do that in my next ITO.
Having lived with mental illness for a long time, and not being able to be treated, and knowing simple statistics that you see, I'm amazed that there's not more done and there's not more understanding of what it's like to have to try and live with it and function when you're really not in a position to do so in many cases. You get isolated. If there are people close to you, you can lose them. You lose touch with everyday society. Now, some people that doesn't bother too much. It does bother. But for someone who has a mental illness and knows it, to be ridiculed by disrespect about suggestions that they have a mental illness by someone they don't even know is abhorrent. And there just needs to be education across the whole community about, hey, listen guys, if there are 4 people in a room and you're one of them, you could be the one day. From my point of view, mental illness has severely impacted upon my life. I've always tended to prefer to be on my own and not engage with other members of the community. Even before I went into nursing care, I just felt like a bit of not an outcast, but I just found it difficult to interact with people. One of the conditions I have is in the autism spectrum, and I'm very much at the high level of that, and a lot of people don't understand me because they know that I have other issues, and yet I speak so intelligently in their minds. But the fact is they know I'm mentally ill, so they don't know how to deal with me. I've had many occasions when people have simply not understood what I've got on about, and it made it very difficult for me to interact with people, and I guess for them to know how to interact with me. So I've got autism spectrum disorder, but I'm really right at the top. I've got a university degree. I've got borderline personality disorder. Some of the symptoms of that are clinical depression and anxiety. I've been diagnosed with those as well, but there's no way of knowing whether they're separate to or part of the borderline personality disorder. And it just makes it impossible to treat me, because in that area in particular with depression and anxiety, a lot of medication is contraindicated. I think that the mental health services that I was in placed too great a reliance on the medication working. At the same time, I just didn't respond to, I've tried cognitive behaviour therapy, I've tried talk therapy, I've done stuff like keeping diaries. Nothing made any difference. A lot of it, from my point of view, is trauma related. No one's ever suggested any sort of trauma disorder or anything like that, but they say, well, okay, you've had a few tough things happen. Some people get over that, some people don't. Well, living with mental illness is difficult because of the stigma that's attached to it in society. And for me, who has multiple conditions, it's very difficult for even health professionals to address them. Some of the impacts of my physical conditions impact upon my mental health conditions.
I think I had a stable home. I was living with my parents, so I think that was a very big thing with it. Not to say that there was no stress or problems in the family. There were problems sometimes, but just the stability of a stable home for 16 years, actually 14 years, because I left my parents' home in 2014. Was away for about 2 years. I was under medication for 16 years, consistently the same dosage, I think. Nothing changed. Well, at the beginning of this year, because I had memory problems, concentration problems, and I found on the internet that the medication I was taking was actually not so good for that, for memory and things like that. What happened was I asked my psychiatrist to reduce my dosage, then eventually come off the medication, and I asked to replace it with another one that would do both jobs of the antipsychotic and the anti-manic. But I guess it didn't go too well with the coming off the medication. It wasn't done properly, and slowly just started to develop symptoms of mania, or just breaking down of a mental breakdown. Well, my mental health was getting worse and worse. So my mother took me to the psychiatrist, and then he said I should go to hospital. And then the same day I was taken to hospital and admitted. It feels like you're like a prisoner in a way, because you're not restricted. In a sense, it's a good thing. In another sense, you feel a bit restricted. I think I was a bit paranoid at that time. I had fear. I was fearful, and I had insomnia. I couldn't sleep some days, and I was just disorganized in general. My mind was not very organized, so like throwing things away and thinking strange things. I think you have no insight. Whatever you're experiencing, you just live it, and you don't really. Only other people can notice it, but you yourself don't really know what's going on. You're too deep. You're too deep in this mental breakdown state that you don't really know that you're in it until somebody else tells you and takes you to the hospital or a doctor or something. Well, I think they need to keep in mind that sometimes the clients, of course, the mentally ill, but at the same time, sometimes even when they're out of hospital, they may not necessarily think clearly or understand well what's being said. So they should always have patience when they're dealing with the clients, because the clients may not be all okay mentally anyway at that time. So patients, when dealing with them, if they get, they need to understand everything about them, like the whole picture of the debt problem or any issue that they have. Time is important to take time to understand the situation, and it's important to be courteous and enthusiastic as well. You have to not like to give up on the person or the client straight away, like soon after, like just whatever needs to be done, just proceed with it and I don't know how long it takes just get good results and work together. Yeah, and the information is important also. Yeah, you need accurate information about everything that needs for the situation, financial and debt. Yeah.